what we're looking at here is a research project between Southern Cross University and Mathematical Association of New South Wales. And it's a 3-year research project. And what we're looking at, as you may have seen earlier, is an investigation of factors impacting development of teachers' mathematics identity and retention in regional rural areas of New South Wales. This is particularly important because there is some real underlying issues within this area. Now, here's our research team, which you have seen earlier too. So I'll just maybe make a quick note here. Ben Bew is actually not with the School of Education. He's actually from the School of Business and Tourism. And he's come on board with us as well because he is going to be looking at developing some online learning systems, or at least advising us about that. You may say this picture, very happy students, all right? But underpinning it, as you saw before, is a real systemic issues and challenges around a lack of high-quality education for students, particularly in regional rural areas. This has become this has become revealed through, the lack or the lag of these students to their urban counterparts at NAPLAN, PISA and TIMSS scores. As well, there's lower secondary school completion rates. So all of this, even though this picture here paints a wonderful portrait, and I'm sure these students and teachers are absolutely wonderful, having a great time, there are some really underpinning disadvantage which part of this project is looking to unpack. Now, there is a shortage of qualified teachers, particularly in mathematics. And this has become apparent, even more so 2016, 76% of Queensland principals reported that many mathematics classes were being taught by teachers who were not qualified, against 51% of the national average. And those figures are also replicated in New South Wales as well. Now, New South Wales government is actually looking at a range of ways in which they can address these teachers and mathematics shortages in rural region areas. They are looking to financially support pre-service teachers during the study, awarding grants to new teachers upon completion of their course, and also offering full-time teaching positions in regional rural areas upon graduation. They are really working hard to source great teachers to teach in regional rural areas and remote areas. There are many reasons why there's a lot of teacher turnover within these regional rural areas, and it really comes down to isolation, loneliness, lack of support, minimal resources, and burnout. And there's been numerous research which has gone into this whole area of how can we better support these teachers in regional rural areas. And obviously mathematics teachers are also within this pool of research data as well. Okay, in regional rural areas, they usually have greater workloads, responsibilities, and are assigned to teach subjects outside their curriculum specialisation. And this is particularly true of mathematics. In fact, if you run the figures a little bit here, what is the likelihood that your child will have at least 1, 2 or 3 out-of-field teachers, this is to do with mathematics, in years 7 to 10, and what fraction? Now, this is actually quite astounding. There's a 76% chance that at least 1 out-of-field teacher, okay, and 35% for at least 2, and 8% for at least 3 years teaching out-of-field teaching, and less than 1/4 of year 7 to 10 students will have an in-field maths teacher every year. Okay, now those figures there aren't just regional, rural and remote areas, that's New South Wales all wide. So you can actually see that these figures would be even more dire, if you like, for teaching mathematics in regional, rural and remote areas. Now, NANSWA, who is our research partner, they've also done some work in this area as well, and they would like to position that at least 80% of years 7 to 10 lessons should be taught by a qualified secondary mathematics teacher. Now, with their studies, they found out within the Sydney metropolitan area, 30% of respondents reported that they were able to that 30% of respondents reported that they were below that 80% figure. Okay, 30% said they were below the 80% of lessons should be taught by qualified secondary mathematics teachers. However, in regional areas, it was 51% of respondents said that they had less than 80% of their years 7 to 10 lessons being taught by qualified secondary mathematics teachers. And this was also not as bad, but 37% of respondents for year 9. So there is a need, and Manswa, who we are research partnering with, had also identified this as well. Now, Halsey, who did the survey of all regional, rural, remote education and through a government-funded project, has suggested a systems problem. It's not necessarily just about teachers not wishing to go out into regional, rural, remote areas. It's about how they can be retained there, how they can be supported. And as you can see there, the employment provisions and school resourcing. So an adaptive solution is needed. And by adaptive, it has to be something which recognises that we're in a very complex situation and that there won't be one answer which fixes it all. In fact, there won't be one answer which fixes any of the problem in any one area. So we'll have to be an adaptive solution which will work in one area and then will have to be adapted for other areas, etc. Okay, so our research focus is to identify and investigate factors that inform and influence in teachers of mathematics identity. I'll unpack that in a moment. Retention in regional, rural, remote areas of New South Wales through a blended community of practice model using a design-based implementation research approach. I'm going to unpack all those oranges next. Okay, but before I do that, Manswa, their main role within this project is the implementation of these, if you like, these interventions. And our role at SEU is to gather the evidence based around the success or otherwise, or to feed back into the process findings that we have so that Manswa can then modify or adapt their approaches. So why teacher identity? It all has to do with not only emotional well-being, but the quality of the teaching in the classroom really comes back from that professional identity. And even a recent meta-analysis of quantitative studies from 2000 through to 2018, they identified 6 domains of teacher identity. And these are them: self-image, motivation, commitment, self-efficacy, task perception, and job satisfaction. In their study, they were just looking at quantitative studies, and they identified 26 of them, but they also identified that in that same period of time, qualitative studies in the area of teacher identity, there was over 700 of these studies. So they took a very small sample, but we are actually developing a model which looks at these elements here in conjunction with some of the findings we're going to be coming out from our research as well. So why retention? Because there's numerous calls, and because there really is a shortage of qualified teachers, especially in mathematics. So if we're going to see if we can tie together elevating teacher of mathematics identity, which will have hopefully these flow-on effects, all right, being researched, we don't know that for sure yet, and that's probably one of the ways in which we're going to be examining or investigating this project, and with the idea that over time we may well have moved the dial slightly on teacher retention. It's interesting to see as well that it will take 13.5 years to halve the out-of-field problem if we recruit freshly trained graduates to match the retirement of in-field and out-of-field mathematics teachers. So, like I said before, just moving the dial a little bit is part of what we're looking at doing here as well. Realise it's a very complex situation. So we have a working definition for community of practice, and remember that's what we're doing here. It's identity and retention within a community of practice model. So we're looking at networking learners together, and that's where VinView comes in as well, because we're going to be looking at ways in which we can network through an online system. Not only just delivering content, but how can we actually get mentoring and coaching occurring within that online space. And we're going to be also looking at ways in which systematically information can be exchanged about their practice. So this is our working definition at the moment. And just remember too, about communities of practice, we're trying to, as I mentioned in the previous slide, address isolation and loneliness, lack of support, minimal resources, and burnout. So part of the community of practice will be also to support support teachers in being able to hopefully reduce the impacts of ways, impacts of teaching in regional rural areas as reported in these studies. Yes, you may have just seen that COVID-19, that's something which I'll address later on, but that really is also going to impact because no longer are these teachers coming to school, they'll be working from home and even further isolated. Okay, why a DBIR approach? Now, what is that exactly? It stands for Design-Based Implementation Research. It's adaptive and has four main components to it, where we are obviously identifying problems which are compelling and persistent, which certainly is the case with retention of mathematics teachers in regional, rural, and remote areas. We are looking at engaging a range of stakeholders, not just teachers and their leaders, but also system leaders. And we are also have already got the commitment from the Education Minister to actually launch the entire project as soon as we can. We are looking at a way in which the design process is repeatable and iterative and is in collaboration with diverse stakeholders. And this is the DBIR approach, Design-Based Implementation Research. And we're going to undertake systematic inquiry into both theory and knowledge in relation to classroom learning and implementation. And that's one of the key points there of DBIR is about the classroom. It is about education. And also looking at the scalability and the sustainability of these models and be able to move it into different areas of New South Wales and potentially outside of New South Wales as well, ways in which we can have a sustainable model which can work within the system and also create change wherever it goes and be adaptive to those different situations. Okay, so here's a rough model which we're working with. And what we're talking about here is a professional affiliate being MASWA, which is embracing the network community of practice. And it's network because we're not just looking for ways in which, actually with network was we're going to purposely build ways in which the teachers can get together with each other. We're going to purposely build ways in which the teachers can engage with a professional affiliate, other people outside of our community of practice. So the whole network notion is going to become quite important to us. And within all that, it's professional learning as well. But we certainly don't see professional learning as the only intervention happening here. We actually do see the community of practice and the way it's been networked and the way people use that community of practice as being an important part of this process.